Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
Okay, so get this.
Uh-huh.
Underwater cities.
Okay.
But we're not just talking about, visiting them.
Right.
We're talking about living there.
Wow.
Like, full-on Aquaman style.
Yeah.
So we've got this popular science article all about it.
Okay.
And there's this company, Deep.
Mm.
They're planning on building these things called Sentinel units,
Interesting.
which are basically like underwater apartments.
Like underwater apartment.
80 meters below the surface.
Wow. That's pretty deep.
It is pretty deep.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
It's a big shift
yeah,
from science fiction to
to actually being
yeah.
possible.
Yeah, science fact.
Right. But I'm already picturing,
Yeah.
leaky pipes,
Sure.
the wifey being down.
Of course.
What would even everyday life be like in one of these things?
Well, so they're designed to house up to 6 people.
Okay.
With individual bedrooms, common areas, even kitchens and bathrooms.
Well, on bathrooms. I can't even get the plumbing to work right in my land apartment.
Right.
But seriously, though, what's the point here?
Yeah.
Is this like a luxury underwater resort situation?
I mean, there's definitely a coolness factor to it.
Sure.
But Deep is really focusing on the research potential here.
Okay.
So think about it.
Yeah.
Current ocean studies are really limited.
Right. You can only down there for so long.
Exactly. You can only dive for so long.
Right.
So these Sentinels could actually allow for a constant scientific presence.
Oh, so instead of just
Yeah.
short bursts of data,
Mhm.
we could have continuous monitoring.
Great idea. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So what kind of research could benefit from that kind of setup?
Well, for one, imagine studying a coral reef's response to a storm
Okay.
over weeks instead of just a few hurried observations.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The data you could get would be invaluable for understanding climate change's impact.
Right.
Or think about deep sea creatures that only appear at specific times. Yeah.
A permanent habitat could revolutionize our understanding of them.
Okay. That does make it more than just a cool underwater apartment complex.
Yeah.
But how do you actually live down there long term?
Yeah.
Isn't the pressure insane?
Well, that's where saturation dieting comes in.
Okay.
And it sounds complicated,
I'm sure.
but think of it this way.
Okay.
Instead of breathing regular air,
Mm.
divers breathe a mix of helium and oxygen.
Huh.
And over time, their body tissues actually absorb these gases
Wow.
until they reach a balance with the pressure at that depth.
Wait, so you're saying that the human body can actually adapt to that kind of intense pressure?
To a certain extent, yes.
That's wild.
It is pretty amazing.
But doesn't that come with risks too?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are definitely challenges.
Yeah.
There was a study in The Lancet that highlighted the psychological effects of prolonged underwater living.
Okay.
So, limited sunlight, confined spaces.
Yeah.
It takes a toll.
It's kind of like...
Imagine living somewhere where you never feel the sun on your face.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or the wind.
Right.
That's a chilling thought, actually.
It is.
It makes me think of the Ocean Gate tragedy, too.
Right.
It's a stark reminder
Yeah.
of the risks involved with any deep sea venture.
Absolutely. Safety has to be paramount.
Right.
And Deep is partnering with Det Norske Veritas,
Okay.
who are a leader in safety regulations,
Gotcha.
to design these Sentinels,
Mm-hmm.
which is reassuring.
Yeah.
But there's no denying this is pushing the boundaries of what we know is possible.
So how long has anyone actually lived underwater continuously?
So the longest recorded stay is 100 days. But Deep's vision is months or years.
Wow. So they're really testing the limits
Yeah.
of human adaptability.
They are.
It makes you wonder what drives that impulse
It really does.
to explore such extreme environments.
Yeah.
If we zoom out a bit,
Okay.
Deep's project isn't isolated.
Right.
We're seeing this surge in interest in extreme habitats,
Uh-huh.
floating cities, lunar bases.
Mm-hmm.
Even Mars is on the table now.
It seems like it.
Hold on, floating cities.
Yeah.
Mars colonies.
Mm-hmm.
That's getting a little sci-fi, isn't it?
It is getting a little out there.
But I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
We conquer one frontier and then we set our sights on the next.
Exactly.
But how do the challenges of living underwater compared to, say, building a base on the moon?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it really highlights how diverse these challenges can be.
Yeah.
Limited resources are a factor in both environments.
Okay.
But gravity plays a completely different role.
Right.
On the moon, you're dealing with near weightlessness.
Yeah.
While underwater, it's the immense pressure that's the constant threat.
So it's not just about, like, replicating our Earth environment.
Right.
It's about adapting to a completely different set of rules.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about, what it really means to make these environments habitable.
Right. It's not just about the technology.
Huh.
It's about understanding the human element, the psychological, the physiological, and even the social adaptations needed to thrive in these extreme places.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's,
It's pretty mind-blowing.
it is pretty mind-blowing
Yeah.
to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Trying to figure out how to create like a little bubble of Earth-like conditions in these totally alien environments.
It's like we're playing a cosmic game of Sims or something.
Right.
But with real-life consequences.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of different environments, you mentioned floating cities earlier.
Yeah.
How do those even work? Are we
Right.
talking like Waterworld, but intentional?
Hopefully not quite as chaotic as that.
Okay, good.
But the article did mention Oceanic City,
Oh.
which is a concept for a floating city
Yeah.
that's designed to be sustainable
Mhm.
and resilient to rising sea levels.
So it's built to actually like withstand
Yeah.
the rising water.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's designed in this modular way, so it can actually like grow and adapt over time.
So it's not just a fixed structure.
Right. It's more like a living,
Mhm.
evolving city on the water.
That's a pretty wild concept.
It is.
But what about those lunar bases? It seems like everyone's got their eyes on the moon these days.
Yeah, it's the new gold rush.
Right.
NASA is working on the Artemis program,
Mm-hmm.
which is aiming to establish a long-term presence on the moon.
Okay.
And China also has plans for a base at the lunar South Pole.
I've heard about that lunar South Pole thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's all about water ice.
Yeah, it is.
Like a potential resource for future missions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Water ice is valuable for everything, from life support to rocket fuel.
Right.
So that's why everyone is so interested in those lunar poles.
And then, of course,
Yeah.
we have Elon Musk and SpaceX aiming for Mars.
Oh, of course.
Are we honestly close to seeing a Mars colony in our lifetime?
It's certainly the dream,
Yeah.
but Mars presents a whole other set of challenges.
Right.
I mean, the atmosphere is thin, the radiation is intense,
Yeah.
and even just the journey itself is incredibly long and risky.
Right. Okay, so back to deep for a second.
Okay.
Let's say they actually overcome all these hurdles. They
Okay.
actually build these underwater settlements.
Yeah.
What would daily life even look like down there?
Right.
80 meters below the surface.
It's no walk on the beach, that's for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
No natural light, limited space.
Yeah.
You have to be constantly aware of the immense pressure surrounding you.
Yeah.
It would take a very specific type of person to thrive in that environment.
It's almost like living in a submarine.
Yeah.
Or even like a spaceship,
Right.
but you're submerged in water
Exactly.
instead of floating in space.
Yeah.
What about food? We're talking algae gardens and protein bars forever.
I mean, they would need to create some kind of closed loop system.
Okay.
Similar to what they have in the International Space Station.
Right.
So that would involve recycling water, managing waste,
Hmm.
and probably growing some kind of food source on board.
Wow.
It's a logistical puzzle, to say the least.
Sounds like it. And what about communication?
Yeah.
Would they have underwater Wi-Fi? Or would they be limited to sending messages in bottles?
Hopefully a little more advanced than messages in bottles.
Okay, good.
They would likely rely on a combination of things. So acoustic communication for short-range contact,
Mm-hmm.
and then hardwired connections for transmitting data back to the surface.
That makes sense. But think about like the mental strain
Yeah.
of living in that kind of isolation,
Right.
so far removed from everything familiar. How do you even prepare someone for that?
That's a really crucial point.
Yeah,
Psychological well-being would be absolutely paramount.
of course.
So they would need rigorous screening processes, extensive training to handle the isolation and confinement,
Mm-hmm.
and probably ongoing support systems to monitor mental health.
I wonder if they'd have like virtual reality setups
Oh, interesting.
where they could like simulate walks in the park
Yeah.
or a sunny day at the beach,
Mhm.
just to give their brains a break
Right.
from the constant blue.
That's not a bad idea. Anything to break the monotony and provide some psychological relief.
would be essential.
Yeah.
It's actually similar to the challenges faced by astronauts on long-duration space missions.
Yeah, I can see that. That sense of isolation and confinement must be pretty universal, regardless of whether you're in space or underwater.
Yeah, it's a common thread.
It really puts things in perspective. You know, we take for granted just being able to walk around, breathe fresh air, feel the sunshine on our faces.
It's true, we do. We're so accustomed to our earthly comforts that we often forget how precious and fragile they really are.
Yeah.
So maybe venturing into these extreme environments will give us like a renewed appreciation for the planet we call home.
But it's also fascinating to see how far we can push those boundaries.
Right.
You know, to see what humans are capable of adapting to.
Yeah.
And what we might discover along the way.
Exactly.
It's pretty exciting.
It is. And it's not just about conquering these environments either. It's
Right.
about understanding them.
Yeah.
So by living underwater, for example, we might unlock secrets of the ocean. That could help us protect it.
Yeah.
Or even discover new species. That could revolutionize medicine or technology.
It's like that saying, right? We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the depths of our own oceans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why these ambitious projects are so important, whether it's deep underwater habitats or those lunar bases we were talking about. They're not just about escaping Earth. They're about expanding our understanding of the universe and ultimately ourselves.
It's funny, we started talking about underwater cities,
Yeah.
and now we're talking about like the moon and Mars.
Right.
It's like the possibilities just keep
Keep expanding.
exploding outwards.
Yeah.
So where do we even go from here?
I don't know.
Is it just inevitable
Mm-hmm.
that we'll become like a multi-planet species?
I mean, it's a big question.
Yeah.
Or is there something fundamentally different about trying to inhabit the ocean?
Right, because it's still technically on this planet.
Exactly.
It's not like we're leaving Earth. We're just
Right.
going deeper.
Maybe it's not about escaping Earth at all.
Okay.
Maybe it's more about
Yeah,
learning to coexist with it in like a much more profound way.
I like that.
You know, the ocean holds so much potential,
It does.
not just for research,
Right.
but for resources, energy.
Even new ways of living.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's funny. When we talk about space exploration,
Yeah,
it's always like the final frontier.
right.
But we've barely scratched the surface of our own oceans.
It's true.
There could be entire ecosystems down there
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we don't even know exist.
Absolutely.
And those ecosystems
Mm-hmm.
could hold the key
Potential.
to solving some of humanity's biggest challenges,
Like what kind of challenge?
like climate change, food security.
Right.
Imagine discovering new species
Yeah.
that could help us clean up pollution
Wow.
or generate renewable energy.
That would be incredible.
That would be a total game changer.
Yeah, it would.
But let's get back to reality for a second.
Okay.
Even if Deep succeeds in building these Sentinels,
Right.
there are still so many questions.
Like what?
Like, how do you even get people and supplies down there
Yeah.
safely and efficiently?
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle emergencies?
Right.
What about the environmental impact?
All really important questions.
Yeah, the logistics of living underwater
Yeah.
must be incredibly complex.
They are.
Like waste disposal, for example.
Exactly.
You can't just flush things away when you're in a delicate ecosystem.
No, you can't.
So you're saying underwater plumbing
Yeah.
might be even more complicated
Potentially.
than the land-based version.
It's possible.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But honestly, the more we talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
the more I think Deep is really onto something big here.
Yeah.
They're tackling some of the most fundamental questions
Yeah.
about human survival
Right?
and our relationship with our planet.
I agree.
It's pretty amazing.
It is inspiring.
It is.
Mm.
But it also makes me wonder,
What's that?
what kind of person would actually choose to live in an underwater habitat?
Right.
Are we talking about like a new breed of pioneers,
How about
like
that?
the early explorers
Right.
who set sail across uncharted seas?
Perhaps.
Or maybe it'll be scientists,
Maybe.
artists, even entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
drawn to the unique challenges and
Yeah.
opportunities
Mm-hmm.
of living in such an extreme environment.
It's a possibility.
Or maybe just people who want a different way of life,
Yeah.
a deeper connection with nature.
It's fascinating to think about.
It really is. It's like we're at the dawn of a new era of exploration,
Yeah.
not just of physical spaces, but of human potential.
It really makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what is it about us humans that drives this constant need to push boundaries, to venture into the unknown?
Whether it's the depths of the ocean
Yeah.
or the vastness of space,
Exactly.
maybe it's that same spark of curiosity that
Yeah.
led our ancestors out of Africa that drove them to explore every corner of the globe.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's like this desire to see what's over the horizon, to understand our place in the universe.
It's a powerful drive.
It is.
And maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
it's the hope that in exploring these new frontiers, we'll discover something about ourselves, something that will help us create a better future for all of humanity.
Well, folks, I think we've surfaced from this deep dive with more questions than answers.
It seems like it.
But isn't that the point of exploration?
Yeah.
To spark our curiosity, to challenge our assumptions,
Right.
and to remind us that the world is full of wonder and possibility.
Absolutely.
And who knows, maybe someday, instead of just reading about underwater cities, we'll be booking our vacations there.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Until then, keep looking up at the stars
The ocean.
and down into the depths. And never stop exploring.
Beautifully said.